So I decided to clerk in DC Superior Court during the 2019 to 2020 term, intending to launch my career as a homicide prosecutor. I knew that DC AUSAs appeared before DC Superior Court judges. The messaging at WashU Law, where I went to law school, was uniformly positive. I would develop a lifelong mentor-mentee relationship. Position would confer only professional benefits. I should apply broadly across the U.S., across the political spectrum, and that I should accept the first clerkship I was offered. So I did all those things. So I get to this clerkship, and beginning just weeks into it, the judge for whom I clerked began to harass me and discriminate against me because of my gender. He would kick me out of the courtroom and tell me that I made him uncomfortable, and he just felt more comfortable with my male co-clerk. He told me I was aggressive and nasty and a disappointment. The day I found out that I passed the DC bar exam, so big day in my life, he called me into his chambers, got in my face, and said, "You're bossy." And I know bossy because my wife is bossy. And I was just devastated. I remember crying myself to sleep at night, crying on the walk to work in the morning. I just desperately wanted to be reassigned to a different judge, but my workplace in the DC courts didn't even have an employee dispute resolution or EDR plan in place that might have enabled that to happen. Confided in a couple mentors and other law clerks who advised me to stick it out. So I did, and I knew that I needed a year of experience to be eligible to work as a prosecutor at the DC USAO. So we transitioned to remote work during the pandemic, moved back home to stay with my parents in Philly in March of 2020, and the judge basically ignored me for 6 weeks before he called me up in late April of 2020, and he told me he was ending my clerkship early because I made him uncomfortable and lacked respect for him, and he didn't want to get into it, and he hung up on me. So I called DC Courts HR, and they told me there was nothing they could do, that HR doesn't regulate judges, that judges and law clerks have a unique relationship, and then they asked me whether I knew that I was an at-will employee. So I reached out to WashU Law for support, advice, assistance, found out this judge had a history of misconduct that law school officials, including several professors and our clerkships director, who still works there, knew at the time I'd accepted the clerkship, but they decided not to share with me because they wanted another student to clerk. So it took me about a year to get back on my feet. After that, I eventually secured my dream job at the DC USAO, moved back to DC in the summer of 2021. And I was 2 weeks into training at the DC USAO. I'd already started working there when I received some really devastating news. I was told the judge had made negative statements about me during my background investigation, that I wouldn't be able to obtain a security clearance, and that my job offer was being revoked. And then a couple days later, the USAO offered me an interview for a different job with the same office and revoked that too, based on the judge's same negative reference. I was 2 years into my legal career, and this judge just seemed to have limitless power to ruin my reputation and destroy my career. So I filed a judicial complaint with the DC Commission on Judicial Disabilities and Tenure, the regulatory body for DC judges, hired attorneys, and in the summer and fall of 2021, participated into the investigation into the now former judge. And we were partway through the investigation when some folks reached out to me privately, told me the judge was on administrative leave pending an investigation into other misconduct at the time he filed the negative reference about me. But the USAO wasn't alerted of that until January of 2022, when, pursuant to the terms of our private settlement agreement, so separate from anything the judiciary could or would do for me, he issued a clarifying statement addressing some but not all of his outrageous claims about me. But by then, the damage had been done, it had been way too long, and I'm pretty much blackballed from what I thought was my dream job.